Hello, and welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach podcast. And I am here with yet another high demand coach, and that is Michelle Page. And Michelle knows what it takes to lead a winning team. Her experience has been honed by working with CORT Furniture, CoStar Group, Bluefin Payment Systems, Leapfrog Online, FleetCor Technologies, and Grainger, just to name a few of the top companies. She's also earned her Bachelor's of Business Administration from John Carroll University and a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Georgia. Go Dogs! Her expertise ranges from solopreneur to Fortune 500 and across industries, with an emphasis on SaaS and PaaS, technology, fintech, banking services, payments, healthcare, business, and professional services. And don't forget manufacturing. And it's not all fluff. Michelle's the real deal. She's also a fellow Georgian, so we're a fellow Gwinnetian. We're both in the same company here. If that's what you call people from Gwinnett, I don't know. But Michelle, it feels like it's been forever getting to this point. I wanted to have you on for a long time. Scheduling finally allowed us to do that. Welcome to the show. Before we kind of jump into just how you help your clients and even tying that in a cool way to the predictable success model, I'd love to just start with your story. What were you doing before starting SalesChasers, and why'd you ultimately make the leap?
Thank you, Scott. It's so exciting to be here. The backstory is about 2 decades of doing exactly what I'm doing today, and that's making revenue out of chaos. So I started in sales very young age and realized I just had an inherent knack for it, an inherent talent. I realized very early in my career that selling by phone is far easier than, in and out of the car, door to door and whatnot. So my entire career has been based on connecting with individuals, with companies, and finding out their needs, finding a solution, and selling by phone, leading teams, building teams, and creating revenue for companies. And of course, I said revenue out of chaos. A lot of that is taking nothing and creating entire organizations.
Yeah, that's super cool. So if we kind of jump into your world today, what would you say is some of the most important work you're doing for your clients?
A lot of the clients I work with are at an inflection point, either a startup or a scale up. Maybe they've hit a growth plateau and they just can't seem to get beyond it. They're preparing for an IPO, a sale, a merger, an acquisition, and they have a need for more revenue. They have a need to look at their business and find out what's going wrong. A lot of times it's not they need more sales. They need to look at the underlying problem. What's causing this? So that's what I do. It is more of a holistic approach. So I kind of ask the question behind the question and help uncover what is it that we can do together to make your company operate better, to fill those gaps, and what value can I provide? It doesn't have to be in business development. It doesn't have to be in sales. It doesn't have to be in revenue growth. But that's the crux of it. It's a holistic approach.
Yeah, and I've had a number of sales professionals and coaches on the show. I've gotten LinkedIn invites from about 1,000 of them. But I can't think of any that have said that sales might not be your problem, right? It's one of those things and we all have this to a certain extent, but to hammer everything is a nail. And one of the things that fascinates me about you, and this is just one example of it, is that it's not just one thing. It's not just a simple, patch on, tack on kind of a thing. Well, but if it's not sales, what is it? What are some examples of things that maybe clients have come to you and thought they had a sales problem, but they really had a fill in the blank problem?
Well, there's so many functional areas that contribute to sales, to marketing, to operations. No functional area of a company should or can operate in a silo. They're all interconnected. They need to be involved in cross-functional communications, cross-functional goal setting, and cross-functional execution of those goals. And that's both strategic and tactical goals. So when somebody is not reaching those revenue goals or their team is underperforming, we need to look at all aspects. Are they getting the support they need from marketing? Is technology and data giving them the data that they need to prospect? Do they have the right tech stacks? A lot of the things that I found is they had tech stacks, but they're not using them properly. They're underutilizing them. They've never really been trained on them. So let's see what you've got. Let's look at your current state. Let's look at your desired state. What's the path to get there?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the straight line of I need more sales.
Yeah.
It's probably a long and winding road. So let's walk that road together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. And you've had a chance to kind of dabble in, study some of the predictable success model. And one of the things in the whitewater stage that we talk about a lot, and folks that follow us will know this, you really can't sell your way out of whitewater. And a trap that a lot of us fall into is, we've basically played the revenue game for a while, right? The more you sell in a relatively simple environment, the more you keep. And then whitewater is where those start to separate, where you might be selling more, but you're not keeping anymore. And there are other things that need to change it. And you've nailed it. It's this idea of kind of bringing the organization together, working cross-functionally, bringing in systems and processes. And I know that's a big part of what you do with teams, is help them, especially from a revenue standpoint, but across the board, start bringing in system and process. Well, why do you think that's so hard for teams to do? And what are some examples of bringing system and process and how they can help, especially from a revenue standpoint?
Well, what I find a lot of times is an organization will call me and say, I want you to coach in this area. We've identified this as the problem. And when we talk further, we realize that they don't have those systems and processes. And the problem extends further than that. Let me give you an example. So an organization that I'm speaking with, actually, they're here in Gwinnett County, they're looking at their one SDR, and they think that is where they need to focus. So after quite a few conversations, and I hate to call them discovery conversations, they are their strategy sessions is what they are. We actually changed focus, and they don't want to coach that one lead generator. They decided to go back and look at their CRM, make sure it had all the fields. They wanted to go back and look at their marketing materials, make sure that they were marketing with the right message. They wanted to go back and look at their data source. They want me to help them evaluate. Do we have the right source? Do we have the right value? And they also want to involve the entire leadership team in coaching.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a coordinated effort.
Yeah.
And it's not until you actually have those conversations with all the stakeholders to bring it to their attention. It's not a problem in one area. You have to, again, holistically look at, one person can't drive to the solution. Everybody's got to be in the boat rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. And you bring up this really big point, because one of the things that I've found is, as an executive team, there's so many things that are kind of clamoring for your attention, and there's this constant temptation to kind of push things out, right? You go deal with it. You go deal with it. And to an extent, that's appropriate, delegation, et cetera, et cetera. But when you don't have the base level of understanding that you need, when you don't have the right mindset around it, you can't delegate it and hope that it just solves itself. Right. And so one of the big things that we're constantly looking at, especially in that predictable success stage, is the involvement of senior leadership and team. It has to start and take root there before it goes elsewhere. And one of the places I've seen this violated the most is sales, right? Especially as companies begin to grow and you kind of get away from the founder being the chief sales leader kind of idea, and you have a dedicated sales team, dedicated executive team, those two start to split. What's the cost of allowing those two to really migrate away from each other?
Well, first and foremost, the founder generally, in my honest opinion, should not be in charge of sales. In fact, did a podcast, about 2 months ago, and it was focused on the founder's dilemma. You've created a great product or service. Now, how do you sell it? The founder is an expert in their product or service. They're the ones that created it. They're not an expert in sales. Their time and attention is best spent on running their company, improving their product or service, and expanding the company. Get an expert in sales. Get an expert in finance. You're probably not a finance expert. Get an expert when the time is appropriate in HR.
Yeah.
Get an expert in operations if that's not your strong suit. So as an executive team, you need to make sure all these functional areas are covered by someone who knows them best. So if you do that, there should not be a great divide.
Yeah, that's excellent. So one of the things that you mentioned as we were kind of discussing ahead of time, you were talking about the different styles and working with them and some of the challenges that those styles have in adopting what you do. So just kind of walk us through. So visionaries, right? We know the visionary founder, 1,000 ideas type of person. What are some of the strengths and challenges that they bring to building a sales team?
I've worked with a lot of visionaries. They're fun to work with. They really are, because they have this fantastic vision of where they want to be. So when we have that current state, desired state discussion, we're both on board. We're excited. We want to jump right in. The challenge is that path to get there. So when you are trying to set expectations, it's this is not today's the current state, tomorrow's the desired state. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time. There is no instant gratification. So it's setting that expectation, managing those expectations, and getting them to see it through completion. Visionaries have great ideas, but you and I discussed this previously. A lot of times they'll implement, and then, there's another bright, shiny object. So things will get half implemented. And all that time, effort, investment, it doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah. And how about our operators? So our kind of ruthless finishers, get stuff done, point me in a direction, stay out of my way type people. What are some of the strengths and maybe disadvantages that they bring to a sales process?
I love operators. I would best work with an operator if there's someone that's a little bit visionary working with them, because the operators a lot of times are very cost oriented. They want to be efficient. They want to be effective. But a lot of times they don't want to look at all the creative options. They want a great path from A to B, and they want it to work. They want it to work fairly fast, but they may not be open to as many creative ideas.
Yeah. That's such a great point, because you could argue that many operators are kind of quintessential salespeople, right? That they want to know what to do and be left alone on how to do it. They're initiators, they're go-getters, they make it happen. But yeah, you're right. They need to have a great visionary to follow, to inspire them, to get them thinking outside of their current reference point. And it's just such a practical example of that you brought up. So we'll kind of move through these quickly. The next one here is processors, right? So they think in terms of system and process, very linear, can be a little slow compared to the other styles, but they bring a strength to a team environment. I'd love to hear from a sales perspective and even your experience. How do processors help and hurt sales processes?
Processors have a very special place in my heart. I absolutely love processes, procedures, best practices, and of course, you've got to document them. The best opportunity for success, for repeatable, scalable success, what was that? Predictable success, would be to have a strong foundation. You cannot Band-Aid and duct tape your way to success. So processes, absolutely. but that can't be the only solution. So if you can give me a little bit of a blend of that visionary, but the urgency of the operator and the methodic, gotta have it just so of the processor, I'm a happy coach.
And I think that's kind of the thing is like, to an extent, you have some people that are kind of wired that way, but a lot of us, if we were to be that way, we'd have split personality disorder, right? Like the value of what you do in building teams and bringing them together is your ability to communicate with all three of these, bring them together, because the way that you get all three is having a team of people come together. And building a team around all of these different strengths, mitigating some of the risks on the weaknesses and pulling through. And so one of the places that this is hard is in the kind of hard charging sales environment. You can get some folks who might be invested in the freedom that they used to have under the old system and struggle to kind of adopt a more systematic approach or struggle to go in and check all the boxes in the CRM. So what is it that makes it worth the leap for them, right? You have the salesperson that's out there that they're used to just kind of running and gunning, and now you're trying to build a team and consistency and scalability. How do you bring them with you?
Well, that goes to the heart of coaching. So my coaching style, very collaborative. I need to understand what's important to them. How do they communicate? How do they think? Because if I understand all of those factors, then I can speak in their language. I can relate why to why for them. So everybody in sales says, with whom? What's in it for me? They have got to understand what's in it for them if they follow the procedures. What's in it for them if they use the CRM and document things? Why is it going to make their job easier? Why are they going to prospect better? Why are they going to close more? But I've got to make them understand we're equals. As a coach, I'm not talking down, I'm talking with.
Right. Oh, that's so good. So you've kind of put me on this idea of moving toward coaching and how you're helping folks. So an easy segue to that is a question I like to ask all of my guests, and it's this. What's the biggest secret that you wish just wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing that you wish everybody listening or watching today knew?
I think the first thing, as it relates to sales, so often the first thing is, well, you've got to help this person do better. You've got to coach them. It's a bigger issue than that. Everybody in sales looks at, again, that newest bright, shiny thing. They put their investment in tech stacks. They're not putting their investment in the L&D part of sales and learning. That's where your investment pays off. Invest in your people. Teach them, train them, coach them, develop your people. If they don't have the support they need, it doesn't matter how cool your tech stack is. If they don't know how to use it, it's a waste of your money. It's a waste of your talent. You're going to lose your people. You're not going to be able to retain them. You're not going to maximize their talents and their results because you didn't coach them.
Right. Yeah. So good. So another question that I have for you, and then I want to make sure folks know how they can get in touch with you, because I know that there's some folks listening that's like, we need this in a big way. So, but before we get there, I'm going to have you take off your coach hat for a moment, put on your CEO hat, and talk to what's the next stage of growth look like for you in your business, and what challenge we have to overcome to get there?
The next stage of my business is actually just getting to reach as many people as possible, as many businesses as possible. I always say sales is one-to-one, marketing is one-to-many. So I want to reach a lot more people. So I've got to take a little bit of a marketing approach. I'm doing more podcasts, more webinars, increasing engagement on LinkedIn. I want to help people. I'm a coach. I'm a giver. One of my greatest satisfactions professionally is developing others. Not necessarily clients. Of course, I love helping clients. But when I've been a sales leader, I want to bring up the skill set, the knowledge of those that I'm working with.
Yeah.
So that means I need to reach more people.
Yeah.
I'm looking at productization, not to sell, but to give away. I'm creating value that I can share.
Yeah.
So that's the initiative I'm working on right now. We're actually, one of my valued colleagues, she is also a fractional leader. She and I are launching a podcast here in a few weeks. It's not finalized yet as far as launch date, but I'll be very excited when that goes live. And it's going to be a coaching podcast. We're going to be coaching business leaders, business owners.
That's fantastic. Well, when you get it out there, let us know, and we'll get it out to our audience as well. Michelle, it's just an absolute pleasure having you here. Folks want to find more out about the work that you do. How can they get in touch with you?
Well, as you see my contact information there, the easiest way is probably SalesChasers.com. There's one word, and it's with an S on the end. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I have a Sales Chasers page as well as my personal page. And you can contact me on LinkedIn, by email, by phone number. I'd love to talk to you.
Fantastic. One of the things that I absolutely love, and it is such a gem from industry to industry, is when you have someone with the technical expertise to take you far, but the strategic ability to take a step back and also say, hey, you're actually going after the wrong thing. That's something that's really, really special about the way that Michelle works. And you can tell it's instantly obvious from conversation number one. So go to SalesChasers.com, find her on LinkedIn, and you won't regret it. And again, Michelle, thank you so much for being here. Such an honor and privilege to have you. And for those who are listening, your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.